They say a week is a long time in politics. I'd argue a fortnight then is a lifetime. The last time I sat here before you all, keeping in mind the cyber outage ruined last week's show, Donald Trump had not been shot in an attempted assassination. Joe Biden was still desperately clinging on to his presidential candidacy, and Kamala Harris was still just a laughing meme no one took too seriously. Oh, how times have changed. Now, there seems to be an unprecedented interest in American politics in Australia. The Daily Telegraph had 2 front pages in a row on Biden alone this week. And whilst it could possibly be the most entertaining show on earth, that's just a bonus. The stakes for us here have risen exponentially. And never has the result of a US election mattered more to Australians. Well, Australians who value our way of life. I don't need to show you a clip of Kamala laughing hysterically to explain why she's unfit for president. Her record is the most powerful weapon the Republicans have. And yes, she failed miserably on domestic borders, but let me broaden that. Did you know Kamala was sent to Europe to dissuade Putin from invading Ukraine? How did that go? China and Russia are literally circling America together for the first time. A joint bomber patrol was intercepted near Alaska. You don't think Putin, Xi, let's throw in Kim Jong-un and the most bloodthirsty of all, Iran's supreme leader, are not licking their lips at the prospect of a Kamala Harris-led America? You think we're on the brink of World War III now? Wait until she potentially takes the reins of the free world. A meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu went, well, as expected. According to our ABC, US Vice President Kamala Harris presses Israel PM Benjamin Netanyahu over Gaza humanitarian crisis. I mean, where do I start? Just some general thoughts, let me throw them out there. How about sharing her disgust at the October 7 attacks, her disdain for those still holding hostages, her empathy for a country that was attacked unprovoked last year in the most brutal way since the Holocaust? I mean, the humanitarian crisis in Gaza exists only because of Hamas, Kamala. How is this so hard? I want to play you a little bit of Netanyahu's speech, which was incredible, by the way, where he references a man we had on this very show a fortnight ago.
John Spencer is head of urban warfare studies at West Point. He studied every major urban conflict. I was going to say in modern history. He corrected me, no, in history. Israel, he said, has implemented more precautions to prevent civilian harm than any military in history and beyond what international law requires.
And here he is saying exactly that on our show.
Studying urban warfare for over a decade, let alone my own experiences, is that they have executed this operation very discriminately and actually have figured out a way within this double, triple standard doesn't exist to still accomplish the mission. The fact that Israel has been able to still accomplish their goals very discriminately with a very low civilian casualty rate has been I've been amazed by it, by the fact of understanding everything that came before this war.
Now, I've been sending my interviews to Netanyahu's head of media. He responds politely each time. Hasn't quite accepted my request for an interview as yet, but I will keep trying. And I'm not necessarily saying that the Israeli Prime Minister watched John on my show, but he might have, and that's enough for me. Now, I know better than most how quickly this news cycle moves, but I wanted to just show you a tiny bit of my interview with Donald Trump's daughter-in-law and Republican National Committee co-chair, Lara Trump. Now, this was from the final day of the RNC convention, just before the former president spoke. It never made it to air because of the cyber outage. So 2 things, and they're quick, I promise. First, I asked her about the assassination attempt and where she was. I'd love for you to take me back to exactly where you were when the assassination attempt occurred. So how did you find out?
Yeah, well, Eric and I were watching actually at home and actually with our children, if you can believe that. It's funny because we normally don't have, the kids are usually not paying close attention to things, but about 20 seconds before it happened, both of my kids looked up at the screen and they go, "Oh, look, it's Grandpa." And I looked down and then I looked back up, and obviously I knew something was very wrong. I saw that he was on the ground, and instinctually as a mom, I said, I've got to do something. So I changed the channel. Eric and I went in the other room, and it felt like an eternity, Erin, that he was down on the ground and we didn't know what was happening. And obviously we all saw him get up and put his fist in the air, and you felt good about that, but we didn't know for sure what was happening and if he really was okay until he called us about 45 minutes later from the hospital. And honestly, it was one of the most upsetting and scariest hours or so of my life, and I know of Eric's life.
And her advice to Australian Ambassador Kevin Rudd when it comes to dealing with a future Trump presidency, given his, well, less than flattering recent remarks.
Everyone is entitled to change their mind, and I think that applies to every single person out there. So it's never too late, I think, to admit maybe that you were wrong and that, this is a great man and a great leader for this moment in our country and really in the world. So I would hope we could see a change of heart, and I think that would be a really positive thing.
She clearly doesn't know Rudd that well, because admitting he was wrong is, I'd say, close to impossible. He's not exactly renowned for his ability to heed advice either. But if he does want to keep his job, I suspect he'd do well to listen.